Carson wrote the hand on the wall of, is this thing on, of Nebuchadnezzar's palace. And Nebuchadnezzar searched for someone who could read the writing on the wall. 3,000 years later, Simon and Garfunkel wrote, and the words of the prophet are written on the subway wall. But can you hear the words of the prophet? Last week, President Macron in France said, we are on the verge of a civil war across Europe, a war that is going to be waged on the basis of race and religion. He was talking, of course, about the Muslim divide that's happening across Europe. But what did I hear? I heard Tucker Carson only 3 weeks earlier say something very similar, where he said the problem with the Anglo-Saxons is that we are so polite. And we just sort of stand aside and everything comes at us and we just say, oh, well, there it is, and we just stand back. He said, but what is going to happen is that we will hit the wall, as it were, and we will not accept divides and insults on the base of race. Now, when you look at America, of course, the division there is terribly racial, not just because of the blacks and the Black Lives Matter and people looking for any excuse at all to cause trouble. But have a look what's going on with the anti-Semitic... Thank you. Across America now. And then we say, well, what's happening in Australia? It's no better here. We've got people that, I mean, how on earth did they get onto the Parliament building and put flags across our Parliament? And who stood there but the Prime Minister saying, oh, well, you know, they'll come down. I mean, I could not believe he was not outraged with what was going on. And across our country, we have recently had a referendum. Now, I sat and wrote this book in the trees of Tallebudgera. It took me 6 years, and I was really sort of cut off. And when I emerged from my writing that took me so long, I found we were on the edge of a referendum. And of course, my background's in political science, and I thought, what are we having a referendum about? Oh, we want to put a fourth arm of government above the three arms of government we've already got, and that group is going to tell the Parliament and the Executive what to do. I couldn't believe it. I mean, the divisions of power that we have in our Westminster system comes all the way from the Magna Carta. 800 years of political evolution and a few wars along the way to get there. When you walk into the dome in the US Congress, and you see it on TV, they show you all the time anything about America, they show you the dome. There's actually nothing in that room anymore because it used to be where the Congress is. So when you walk in and you're totally overwhelmed with the size of the room and the lights and the ceiling, when you turn directly to the right, there is a glass cabinet. You turn around and you walk over to the glass cabinet, and inside of it is a copy of the Magna Carta. They take seriously that 800 years of political process that gave them that system of government. But here were we, oh, we're so clever, we are going to step all over that and have a fourth arm, we're going to invent that's even 3.5, isn't it? That's 3.5? That's probably what it was, 3.5. I don't know which is the half, the Governor-General or the First Nation people there. But we're going to put a fourth arm of government to tell the rest of them what to do. And I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely bewildered that we could get to this point. And I then found a paragraph in a book by Stuart McIntyre from Melbourne University, apparently a complete left-wing communist, but beside the point, he said, if we deny our British heritage, we are going to become a people without a soul. And that is what is happening because we are currently being divided. Even though that referendum was a no vote in Queensland, what was it, 70 and 80% in some places, it only slowed them down. It has only slowed them down because we're talking about fanatics that are out to divide the country. Because this First Nation people isn't necessarily Aborigines. You've just sort of got to have a feel for it, you know? It's sort of in the Mabo thing. Remember the movie...
It's the vibe.
It's the vibe. Well, that was in the castle. And that's a takeoff of what happened in the Mabo decision. They could not, I read the whole 150 pages of this blasted thing, and I took out 5 pages of just sentence quotes that confirmed the legality of terra nullius. 5 pages of quotes out of the Mabo Declaration, and they couldn't get to giving the Aborigines, or the Torres Strait Islanders, any land based on law or international law, so they turned to land law. Let's go over to land law and see if we can find a clue in there. And they waffled on and eventually said, oh, it's just the vibe of the thing. And I couldn't believe it. I was there in the castle. That's how the castle movie got going, with that whole thing about it was just the vibe. There wasn't any law. So you know how the Mabo Declaration ends? You probably don't. There's only a couple of, after all of this, it has 3 points, and it basically says, it's none of our business, it's Queensland's business, and Queensland will have to deal with it. Well, you should have known that before you picked up the case, shouldn't you? Right? But you can hear that there's a movement going on against, I don't know who, but it's against Australians. You see, when you actually read the beginning of that Uluru Statement, and even this Pathway to Treaty document for Queensland, on the first page of both documents, the people declare that they are not Australian. They declare that we're going to sue they're going to sue the people who are Australians for everything that they can get out of them. Read it. And the other thing that they say in that document is that we are a religious movement. We are pantheists, and we hug trees and think that we're all part of the universe. It's that old pantheism that we all think we're just part of it, all right? It is fundamentally a religious statement. What are we doing giving a group any room in our constitution? Oh, well, because we're too, I don't know what it is, stupid, dumb, blind, that we can't recognise that that's what this document actually is. It's a religious statement that we are one with the land, and therefore we have ownership. Wait a minute. That A did not equal B, because under Aboriginal law, LORE, you did not own anything. Aborigines had no sense of value. So they all shared whatever they had. No idea of owning land. So there wasn't any nation, 500 warring tribes. So there was no one for the King of England to sort of say, oh, we'll do a treaty, or we'll do this, or we'll do that. What they did say, because England was a Christian country, an enlightened Christian country, and the King and the Prime Minister said, well, we're going to jump over treaties, and we're going to jump over, of course, invasion, and we're going to make every Aboriginal person in Australia a British citizen, equal under the law. And he also said, now, when you get there, Philip, now Philip's only got 700 troops that were sort of leftovers from other regiments. They're not very good. And 700 other people that have been rejected from the slums of London. I mean, what are you going to do with them? Anyway, had a whole 1,400 people to make an invasion. You are really having me on, aren't you, right? Anyway, he said, Philip, when you get there with your lot, look after the Aborigines. Look after the Aborigines. And that's what he began to do. And anyone that was caught offending or killing an Aborigine, Philip intended to hang them. And within 2 years, Philip was made an Aborigine and given the name Walla. Today, of course, we just call him an elder and call him Uncle Wally. But that's what he was. They made him an elder. And within that same period, Aborigines were living within the colony. A Spanish sea captain showed up, and in his diary in Spanish that's only recently been translated to English, I found this fellow visited Sydney. And in it he wrote, I could not believe it. He said, there were Aboriginal children playing and laughing on the streets. And I went to dinner with the governor, and there I was sitting next to Aborigines. He said it was the most integrated place I'd come across in the world. We have lost that. And we are being told to forget our pride and forget our history. And we are becoming a people without an identity. Now, you may think it's an unholy relationship, and I can forgive you for thinking this, between the Greens and the Aborigines. What on earth would the Greens have with the Aborigines? Well, the Greens are also pantheistic. They also love the earth. And if you really dig into the core of the Green movement, they want to rid the earth of all humans. See how that works out. I mean, and who's going to be the last man and woman standing? Are they members of the Green Party? You know, sort of, it's a bit like there's some other religion group that was a bit like that too. But I mean, you know, how stupid is this? But they're both anti-development. See, when people get native title, it's basically you can go and sit on it title. Because you can't do anything with the land. You can only go and sit on it. You can't build on it. You can't develop it. You can't sublease it. You can't do anything with it, which is what we're going to hear about tonight. So why don't we talk about freehold, right? But the Greens are supporting this Aboriginal movement because they too see if people get native title, if they get native title, then nothing's going to happen with that land. And what is it? 51 or 52% of our continent is now under native title? I mean, how insane is this? And they're just sitting on it. What are they going to do with it? You see, if we are progressive, if we still believe that this country has a future and this state has a future, someone pointed out to me not so long ago, do you know, he said, Queensland is as big as Europe. We haven't even begun to develop this country. And you start to think of all the possibilities if we want to see this development. Now, sure, we need to be stewards of the land, and we've learnt that lesson. You know, we only got to read Genesis 1 and 2. Be stewards of the land. It's a basic lesson. But yes, but it doesn't mean that we need to stop progress. You have clothes, you have a house, you have electricity, you have mobiles. We now have a life expectancy greater than any other time in the world, and food on our table. There are poor people that we still care for, but we have a phenomenal society because we believe the human spirit wants to progress, and yet we are now confronted with a whole movement that says no progress, just leave it alone. We're going to divide your country. So it's one thing for me to talk about progress, but what I'm trying to say is we are literally on the brink of a major divide in this country that's not quite as bad yet as what we're seeing among the Muslims, but don't you think for 1 minute if there were more of them we would have the same trouble. But we are still suffering a divide in this country. And I've said before last time I was here, we are vulnerable to the slings and the arrows and the insults that come against us that are destroying our pride because we don't know our history. We don't know our history. And in that referendum, people were saying treaty, and I was waiting for the comeback, or invasion. Well, where's the comeback? Or we weren't looking after the Aborigines. But where was the comeback? We were vulnerable because we don't know our history and we're losing our pride. And so I've written that book over there to try and be factual and give us a sense again of the pride that we have in the country. Tonight you're going to hear some gentlemen speak about how serious it is getting. And I feel like I'm a frog, or we're a frog in the warm water that's boiling. It's bringing to the boil. And we're just getting, done like a dinner with a lot of this stuff that's going on. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to people that are going to give you the details. Thank you very much.